LMadu, and the topic is Iran, from revolution to nuclear ambition. And Dr. Madu has already laid out the ethnic situation in Iran up to this point. And of course, Dr. Madu, let us allow you to continue that conversation that we had earlier.
Yeah, and you know, like I said previously, when the clerical establishment and other Iranians felt that, you know, the United States was chewing far more in Iran than they really wanted to, they started coalescing around, you know, the clerical establishment to overthrow the Shah. And of course, one of those, the Shah's strongest opponents was Ayatollah Khomeini, you know, who was expelled from Iran, and he went to live in Najaf, Iraq, under Saddam Hussein. The Shah, you know, reached an agreement with Saddam Hussein later for Saddam Hussein to expel Ayatollah Khomeini from Iran, from Iraq, you know, to Paris. But when he did that, he didn't know he was killing himself. Now, in Iraq, Khomeini and his group didn't have exposure to the world press. Now, when Khomeini got to Neufville-le-Château in France, he got, you know, attention of the world press, which really magnified his fight against the Shah. Okay. Now, when he got there, he was surrounded by a lot of Iranian civilians who were very articulate. Prominent amongst them is Abul Hassan Bani-Sadr, who became the first president. You had Sadegh Gobsadeh, Ibrahim Yazdi, who used to be a cancer research specialist here. So all of them started teaching him how to talk to the world press and write things for him and all that. So eventually, you know, in January of 1979, the Shah left Iran. You know, and came to the United States and to Panama and to Egypt finally, you know. And he was replaced, of course, he appointed the man who replaced him called Dr. Shapur Bakhtiar. Bakhtiar is from, you know, an ethnic group called the Bakhtiaris. That's how he got his name, Bakhtiar. So he became, you know, the prime minister. But then in February of '79, he was forced to flee, you know, for dear life to Paris. And Khomeini came back and became, you know, the Velayat el-Faghi, you know, of Iran. Then a revolutionary government was established, and you had an Islamic Revolutionary Council, you know, that was ruling the country. What happened was that Khomeini established what you call an Islamic theocracy. You know, Iran actually is what you call a theocratic democracy. Though we might not like it, but at least they vote. Unlike some of our friends, you know, in the Middle East, where nobody has ever voted, you know. So he had a theocracy with a president, a parliament called a Majlis, Shura, that's the name of their parliament, and three key, you know, what you call three key executive bodies, like the way we have our check, you know, and balances here.
Executive, judicial, legislative.
Exactly. He had what you call the Assembly of Experts, which is headed now by Hashemi Rafsanjani. His job is to appoint the supreme leader, you know, for life. The supreme leader is appointed for life, but they can remove the supreme leader. It's a council of about 86 members, you know, chosen, you know, for 8 years. Then you have the Council of Guardians, which organizes the elections and monitors this and makes sure people who are, you know, selected, you know, through and pew for the revolution. Then you have the Expediency Council that makes sure anybody running for office and all that, and you know, is correct. So that's how you have the checks and balances. Now, the president of Iran actually doesn't run the show. You know, the show is run by the supreme leader, you know, on the advice of the Assembly of Experts. Now, the supreme leader, you know, is like a pope, because that's why he's for life. You know, it's like a pope. The president, you know, can make decisions, but the supreme leader has to sign off on all this. Initially, when the revolution came into being, Khomeini didn't want any person with a religious background to be president. You know, the first president was Abul Hassan Bani-Sadr. When he disagreed with Khomeini, you know, he went into exile. Then Khomeini appointed somebody else who was voted for, Dr. Raja'i, Ali Raja'i. He was assassinated after some few months. So the inability to find other civilians to fill that post made Khomeini to accept
religious,
the present supreme leader as president,
Good.
Khomeini. He became president in 1981 until 1989 when Khomeini died. So he was elected as supreme leader in 1989. Then Hashemi Rafsanjani, became president. He's a mullah too at that time. Then after him, Hatami became president. Then after Mohammed Hatami, you have Ahmadinejad. What is very important here is that the current supreme leader actually doesn't have the respect of the clerical establishment because they think he doesn't have the religious credentials to be the supreme leader. You see, he was, when he became this, and he was what they call a Hujjatul Islam. In the Shiite religious hierarchy, you have the mullahs, you have the Hujjatul Islams, you have the Ayatollahs, then you have the Grand Ayatollahs. So when he became this, he was the Hujjatul Islam.
He went all the way up.
Then he was promoted to Ayatollah so that he can be able to have this post. While you have other Grand Ayatollahs, you have somebody called Grand Ayatollah Ali Montazari, who Khomeini anointed first, but then fell out with Khomeini. Then you have another one called Shariat Madari, Muhammad Kazem Shariat Madari. He was a Grand Ayatollah. He's from Tabriz. He was senior to Khomeini. Then you have Ayatollah Mahmoud Telegani. These are all, very much senior to Khomeini. And then, of course, Rafsanjani himself was a Hujjatul Islam on the same level with Khomeini. So that up to today, a lot of that establishment still feel
that bitterness that's a part of that.
Exactly, that he's not qualified to be the supreme leader. Having said that, the revolution in itself led into the conflict between Iran and Iraq. When people are wondering why did they start fighting in the first place, it led directly into the conflict. When Khomeini went back, he never forgot being kicked out of Najaf by Saddam Hussein. He still had that animus and anger. So what happened when he went back, he started talking about overthrowing Saddam Hussein, calling him an infidel and all that. And Saddam Hussein started preparing to attack Iran in order to forestall the revolution, in his track.
In his country, he
That's
was trying
correct.
to protect himself.
That's correct, because 60% of the Iraqi population is Shiite, which is the majority in Iran. So they could make trouble for Saddam Hussein. And that's how, part of how, that conflict.
Iran-Iraq war started in reference to that. And of course, we'll pick up at the end of the beginning of next segment, Dr. Madu. Of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.